Hi, this is David Stevenson from the Sunday Express. Here's a Q&A I attended with Daniel Radcliffe and the three writers from Sky Arts comedy A Young Doctor's Notebook. Daniel starts by reading a letter from a fellow actor in the comedy, John Hamm.
15 minutes before we came in here. Hello, collected members of Britain's esteemed press. I wish I could be there with you in London, but as circumstance requires, I am stuck here on the jarringly hideous Amalfi Coast. I wish I could be there instead, in a converted hotel room, defending both my accent and the logic behind how my character grew several inches in the years between his 21st and 34th birthday. Instead, sadly, I am here, defending my poor Italian pronunciation and vocabulary to a group of Italians who couldn't care less. I wish most of all I could once again be sitting next to Daniel, my comrade in arms, discussing our scene where we bathed together. Instead, I am here next to Jennifer, my long-time love, dangling our feet in the Mediterranean, waiting for a boat that will take us to the lovely island where our friend will be celebrating his 40th birthday. I am, quite simply, gutted. I hope you enjoy the madness, marvel, and macabre that is A Young Doctor's Notebook. I'll work on the accent. Best, Ham.
What time of the day did he write that email? Anyway, who knows? I suppose first question to you, Dan. It's certainly an unusual piece of television, I'd say, quite distinctive. Why did you want to do it?
Well, what none of these guys knew, nor John, when they sent me the script, was that I'm sort of an obsessive Bulgakov fan, and have been since I read Master and Margarita when I was about 18. So when I actually first read this book, I believe I did my own terrible adaptation of it. But needless to say, these guys did a much better job. And yeah, I mean, it's rare that you read something that is so kind of immediately compelling and exciting. And also being such a fan of it, it was just thrilling to see such a brilliant adaptation. I mean, it was clever, and it was the way, you know, obviously the short story Morphine is combined with the Young Doctor's Notebook stories is inspired, frankly, gentlemen. So no, it was as soon as I read it, I mean, the first meeting that John and I had about it, I was basically, I said, you know, I'm ready, let's do it, let's go. And he was actually saying, well, you know, slow down, like, he almost, I think I was slightly too enthusiastic for his expectations, but yeah, I left it all as soon as I could.
You say you're a big Bulgakov fan. Could you say why? What is it you admire about it?
I don't know. I mean, for me, The Master and Margarita is kind of the greatest, most exciting work of imagination that I've ever read. And even in a book like this, which is obviously much earlier that's his first book, you know, he still can't, it's not magical realism at all, but he can't help but let his own crazed imagination still come through, and so everything just has a slightly fantastic edge to it, and I think that's something. And the characters are all really funny and well drawn, and yeah, so those things.
I mean, maybe for the writers, how, of course everyone here would have read the books, but how for the one or two who may not have done, how close to the short stories is this?
Not tremendously. It's set in a hospital. It's set in a hospital. Some legs come off. Some morphine gets taken. The original stories were also published separately because Bulgakov wanted to escape the censor, so he published them in medical journals, and so very heavy on medical detail. And when we were reading them, we sort of noticed there were times when he approached the sort of humour and silliness that you get in his later works, but he sort of almost falls short of that. That might be a sort of a Russian thing, I don't know. So part of our job was to take it to an actual gag. If that makes sense.
I don't think
I could hear some people gagging.
I don't think Bulgakov wrote the Felcher quite so gay.
That wasn't yeah.
He was agree.
This is actually a real person as well. If Demian Lukic's family get to see it, they might want to have a word with us about the fact we've clearly made him quite camp. But Pelagay and Anna sort of treats the book, haven't they?
Yeah. And the central story.
Although I have the relationship with Anna in the book, don't I?
Yeah, but he switches them a bit.
Yeah.
They're funny stories. We were sort of reading them as TV writers, and he almost writes episode 1 twice. We noticed. He does sort of arrive twice.
Classic,
Always start on episode 2.
I'd imagine one thing that people here would like to know is how, well, is the graphic gore, some of which we've just seen, is that your innovation? Is that your addition, or is that there? Is that part of his mind?
Bulgakov, I think at times it's even gorier in the book, isn't it?
Yeah, we held back. Well, I mean, it's the story, you know, he has learned medicine in books, and he needs to be confronted with the, you know, barbaric reality of that. So I think it's a big thing for Mikhail as well.
Yeah, I think the gore was pretty much the only thing that I was like, that needs to stay. That was like, because you really can't do justice to the book without including all of that, because it is so vivid in the book what is, and as you say, I didn't realise that they were written as like medical instruction manuals originally, so it obviously that explains how much detail he went into, and it's pretty graphic there.
But there are bits in the book and in episodes 3 and 4 that is brutal, and that sort of reflects, I think, you know, what life was like as a doctor. And
so we ain't seen nothing yet, is what you're saying?
Well, let's say there are bits coming up that probably are sort of.
The child survived. The child survived in this one. Let's not forget.
The BBFC certificate goes up a notch, doesn't it, towards the end? I think these are a 12, and we
Yeah.
it's probably also worth saying Bulgakov was a doctor before he was a novelist, so these are sort of semi-autobiographical tales of this horror that he confronted and having to run a hospital at the age of 22 or whatever it was.
Were you particularly keen, Dan, to do a comedy?
Yeah, so I thought I'd choose the most obvious kind of comedy.
I remember you saying you were going to do a Russian historical comedy drama with Ned Floater.
Yeah, exactly. that was what I called you with that. Yeah. No, I've always, what I watch mostly is probably comedy, and that's you know what I spend most of my own time watching, and what I will always have. So yeah, I definitely wanted to do something that was funny. But I think what I liked about this is that, as you'll see in episodes 3 and 4, you know, it does get incredibly dark and actually quite, you know, pretty sad. And there was something about the way those two things coexisted without, like, it wasn't, you know, it was seamless and just, yeah, it was very exciting to be given. Yeah, I mean, like, to be honest, whenever you get something this good, your heart does little somersaults, you know, it's definitely cool to get excited for me.
I mean, I suppose, when you consider all of your work, are you particularly proud of this piece?
Yeah, very, very much so. Like, I really, and also it's probably the thing that is, you know, it's certainly one of the things I've been most passionate about simply because of the Bulgakov connection. And, you know, I spent my 21st birthday in Bulgakov's house in Russia. Like, that's why I went to
He's not still alive.
That was a conversation.
There's some legal problems coming our way.
But it was, so yeah, all of that was just meant that I kind of couldn't wait to get on board. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but it was, yeah, it was a great pleasure.
And Bulgakov.
Shall I give you the moment as well that because I also did, because Sean wrote a show called Monkey Dust, which I was a massive fan of, and so when I saw Sean's name on the front, I was like, oh great, they're going to do something really weird with this, and that's the way of, you know, that was one of the things that definitely attracted me to this in the first place.
I hope I've put enough sorrow and heart and bleakness into it.
It's our idea not to animate it.
Could you tell us, Bulgakov was also renowned as a satirist. Is there going to be more satirical intent here? Are there, without being too both-faced, is it going to get serious in some of its themes? To anyone?
Yes, but not necessarily.
Yeah, I think this is really early on for us. So this is the first time he was writing. So I think not yet.
Also, he through publishing them in these medical journals and magazines or whatever, was the only way he could write without acknowledging that something else was happening in Russia. And the censor would have sort of been on his back about that. And in the next episodes, we sort of there's an absence, I suppose, in Bulgakov's stories. We decide to have some fun with that and sort of compound young doctors' misery of being stuck in the middle of nowhere by him receiving everything about people who are having a revolution and drinking fucking having a great time, and it really sitting out the window with
But I think there's something endearing about the short stories that is happening against the backdrop of the the most amazing revolution in history involved. Garkov sort of goes, yeah, I'm not going to deal with that.
Yeah.
So in Russia in 1917, yeah, we're going to go to the place where that doesn't affect all. And, you know.
I mean, Dan, do you know much about Bulgakov the man? Have you read
a little
about
bit.
him? And what is it you like about him?
I mean, just the fact that how he, particularly how Master and Margarita was written. I mean, he wrote it in complete secrecy from, I think, like for about 14 years, I think. And when he died in 1940, he died absolutely thinking that it would never be published. So it's almost.
Well, he also burnt it.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
And then
He rewrote it from memory, didn't he?
realised
Yeah.
it was a terrible mistake.
Yeah, so I mean, I think just the fact that what the book ultimately stood for, because it came out, in 1966, I think, when his wife managed to get it published, and within days, people were coming up to each other on the street and quoting whole passages. I mean, phrases like manuscripts don't burn and things have become part of the Russian language and phrases. So yeah, I mean, I just just reading the bits about him that I have, which isn't not nearly as much as Aaron has, but I would, he's a pretty remarkable man.
Why did you choose to bring in the I think it's a novel, Morphine, that you brought in that isn't part of the short stories? What did that add?
It's normally published with these short stories just because the central character is again a doctor.
Yeah.
And
It was written a bit afterwards, wasn't it?
well, yeah, I think it was written a bit later, and it's semi-autobiographical as well, because Bulgakov he had to do a tracheotomy on a little girl, and he sucked out diphtheria himself and took an anti-diphtheria serum after that, and the pain was so great he took some morphine and ended up addicted to morphine. There's something very classic. The classic medical students by their second year, they're just shooting up. There's something about a doctor who's addicted to morphine that's a particularly interesting case, because any patient that has morphine never gets to open the cabinet again and doesn't get to have it. And so there was something about having the older doctor going back, and we'll see in the later episodes, he sort of wishes the younger doctor never started on this journey to morphine because he knows where it'll go.
And Dan, tell us about working with John Hamm.
I mean, as you imagine, it was great. I mean, he's one of the best. He's obviously kind of everything that everyone knows about him, in that he's really funny and incredibly personable and lovely. But the thing that I haven't heard and handsome. But that's I didn't say that. They just saw him. But yeah, I mean, the thing that I don't think the thing I haven't heard people say about him is that he's one of the best technical actors I've ever seen. Like, I think because he's directed a lot of episodes of Mad Men now as well, he would, if there were moments when, because we shot the whole thing in 20 days, so we were sort of pretty much always up against it. And if there was a moment when we'd be blocking through a scene and it was the last scene we were doing that day, John would just say to me, like, if we both stay on this line, then we won't have to turn the cameras around and shoot that way, and we'll save time. We'll be able to get the scene in, 2 setups as opposed to one and a massive turnaround and then another. He's with that kind of stuff as well. He's really. I mean, actually, the first we did have a stunt coordinator on the series, but actually he hadn't been brought on by the time we came to shoot that first little fight between me and John, and that was John choreographed that in about 30 seconds.
He just really wanted to fight you.
So that's how I'll get him.
Stunt coordinator as well.
Yeah. Guy.
He choreographed it so he won. And did you help him with his accent?
Sort of. Not. I mean, he asked me to read all of his record all of his lines once, so he could have me saying it on tape. But you mean when he arrived at the read? Because when we got to the read through, that was really like. For me at least, that was the only unknown quantity. For you guys, I was a massively unknown quantity. But in terms of John, like, that was the only thing that because I obviously know he's a great actor, but I didn't know if he could do that. And I mean, I don't know how much my takes helped, but like he was pretty flawless.
Could you have said to him, I haven't quite got it, John, sorry?
No.
Of course.
At that point, you just shut up and hope for the best. But luckily, he was great.
You mentioned you filmed the whole thing, 4 episodes in 20 days.
Yeah, it was Sunday.
Yeah. I mean, I'm right in thinking that's a pretty crazy schedule.
It was
We
fun.
had weekends off.
Yes, we did have weekends.
It was, we filmed it as well in June, was it? So it was blazing June, really hot down in Middlesex, which, as you can imagine, is very similar to 1917. So very desolate. So people were coming in from outside wiping sweat off.
Yeah, it was.
But the speed of the whole thing has been pretty remarkable.
Because how long between John talking to the player and you writing?
Well, definitely, yeah. I mean, according to the rules of TV, we should still be like having endless conversations about the treatment and where it's going to go by.
Well, John Ham says
Well,
yes.
clearly wrote the treatment.
So John said yes, and then Clelia, I think we wrote the script in 3 months, 2 months.
Yeah, it was,
And then
yeah.
pretty much, Dan was on board and it steamrolled through. It was
You said John said
And then we
yes.
got Sean to play Ugoris as well. Which,
that was the only sticking
the
point.
Holy Trinity.
Yeah.
Ham
That's
Radcliffe.
that sort of screen presence comes at a price.
Tell me a little bit about the gore, the prosthetics. Lots of people were R-ing away here. Did it look like that to you? Was it as disgusting, getting sprayed with pus as it appeared?
It was.
The first one was great. It's the first one we did, just because we were messing around, we were trying to get all the percentage right. The first time it came out like a water cannon. You had about 3 litres of pus.
Yeah, it was very good. And then, it was all that stuff was amazing, to be honest. And what was brilliant about it was just the fact that, as you say, it was a very quick shoot, and the hair and makeup department and the prosthetics department were pretty phenomenal. Like they for them to have, I mean, and Kate Benson, the chief hair and makeup artist, is sort of amazing. She works on everything from like horrible histories and Mitchell Webb to this, and like I think she won a BAFTA for Hugo last year. Like she's kind of incredible and just never stops working. And just all of it was like, even though we were going in, I was having beards on and off, and things were like prosthetic legs being put in now. Like it was they just handled it brilliantly, as did the people. I mean the art department and the set team, because we had, the room that is, not to ruin the illusion too much, but the room that is the room you see John in at the beginning is also the consulting room and my bedroom. And then, does it do anything else? No, and then the operating theatre gets turned into something entirely different. So it's all, but then, and they were just, and it was all the same thing. It was all just under dressing, and they were just brilliant. So yeah, that was kind of one of the great things about my job is that you get to watch all the departments work, and that was watching those guys was fantastic.
And was there any particular scene that you found the most disgusting? Not that I want to dwell on this, but my stomach is still
I mean, I think the amputation scene was rough. Like, and particularly for Adam Godley, who on that day was seriously nauseous and had been dealing with it all day, and then had to come in and watch me eating away at the muscle and fat for hours. Because that's the thing, like, the prosthetic leg was so good, and Vicky had made it in such detail that you had all the layers of, so you had the skin, and then the muscle, and then the fat and the muscle, and then the bone. And I sort of assumed, because there was this bit written in the script of when I get through the bone, the thing flips up. But of course, you get through the bone, and there's still the other side of fat and muscle that you have to get through. So it then becomes like even more kind of horrendous and gory, and really making someone was sick at that. Sorry.
It's this kind of detail that definitely faces who came off set. So it was like.
I did say on like the third day on because we shot the amputation scene and the tracheotomy scene back to back, and the tracheotomy scene is in episode 3 and is with not such a young girl, but still a young girl, and it's really horrendous. But I did come off set, and I've been with I've talked to our medical consultant for so long that I came off set like, out of push. On a plane. Is there anyone is there a doctor on the plane? Is there anyone who has played it? I could step in. They do it with a pyro and Anaconda.
An amputation?
No.
Just as before we open it to the floor, I imagine that 4 episodes isn't enough to have covered all the short stories. So is there the potential for more, all things being well?
We took better jokes.
Well, as we leave Young Doctor, not wanting to spoil anything, the morphine addiction we see is kicked in, the Russian Revolution is spreading throughout the country. So
There's material.
You can't get a story out of the Russian Revolution walking with you. Maybe we'll throw in a love interest and that will be fine.
There are some parts of morphine that tremendous. We didn't really get told to deal more with John Hamm's character and his addiction, but his attempts to get morphine and conning people online and building his relevancy is brilliant morphine, but we don't have time for it in this. But this one.
Good. Okay. We'll open it now to any questions you may have. You stick your hand up. Are we going to pass around the microphone, or should we just shout loud? We are going to pass around the microphone. There's a lady at the front here, who's now very far away from the microphone.
It's alright, I'll shout if you like. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Okay,
You're quite
brilliant.
close,
Okay,
Sorry, did
fine.
somebody say something?
Thank you. Sharon Locker from Metro newspaper. A question for Daniel. What are the challenges of sharing a single character portrayal with another actor? And also, what was it like sharing a bath with John Hamm?
It's great. Sharing a bath is great because you just sort of know that you're the envy of every woman ever. So that was fun. And in terms of playing, I think there's just things when you work with somebody like John, it's fantastic. I mean, I I imagine if you were doing something like this and the other person was really not very collaborative, and it'd be a nightmare. But John and I sort of worked on it's just little things like the little ear twitch and things, make sure we're both going to the right side and things like that. It's all quite basic, and you just sort of keep an eye on each other and see if there's anything in one person's performance that you can without a great show bring into the other person, or bring into the other character. But yeah, no, it was definitely fun. I think John was a huge part of why it was so easy.
Were you actually in the bath with him?
Yes, yeah. Look, I think you always forget about bath scenes. Whenever there's a bath involved, I'm like, oh good, I've been in the bath, that'd be nice. But then you forget.
It saves you time in the morning.
Exactly.
I don't even bother. I don't take one the rest of the day.
But then you forget that water goes cold, and then sort of you're there and you're shooting
sometimes
it.
the hot water fails in the studio.
Yes,
and they have to fill the bath
with
using
buckets,
the urn from the tea and coffee
That was
stand.
what we were doing.
I'm not sure we're legally allowed to say that.
Well, sometimes that happens.
Sometimes, yeah, it happens.
We're not saying that.
Who else would like to ask a question?
No.
There's someone up there.
Hi, it's another question for Daniel. Would you have liked it to have been more gory?
I think the level is about right. I mean, I think the lady who was sitting behind me would have left if it had been. So I
haven't been sitting in front of her.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it was so. I don't think so. I think we all found a really good level. And I don't know how much more we would be able to show. Like it's
That's probably because I mean there's more heartbreaking stuff. But
yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
episode
it's harrowing.
The fact on me is rough. So.
Yeah.
By episode 4 we were running out of blood.
Yes.
We had to go back to the fake blood shop.
Anyone else then? This lady here.
Hi. Obviously there's kind of intrinsic slapstick in the discrepancy between John Hamm's height and Dan's. And I just wondered whether the casting was pre-script. There are references to that in the script, and clearly one wouldn't expect someone to rise however high in the course of life. And I just wondered at what point the whole idea, A, of the split character came up, and B, of having two people who didn't look that similar to each other came up.
Well, I just I don't know. It's funny because I think weirdly we did, apart from the height thing, I think facially more similar than people would expect. But also, I think I'll just say I'll let you talk about anything else. But I'll just say that I encourage as many short jokes as I can possibly. Like I'm actually going to have to be very wary of it because on this and also on the F word, which I just finished filming, I've made like a lot of references to it, so I might have to stop trying to get so much comedy out of my height.
There were a couple in there before you were cast, but just because it's a way, the mission of this project is to humiliate and embarrass and debase the young doctor, and that was
Not that it's humiliating to be short.
No,
That's not what I'm
But the idea for the
it's a metaphorical difference. Through smoke and mirrors, we were able to literalise.
Make me a lot
John Hamm is actually really small. That's the
John Hamm was wearing heels.
he was on a crate for most of
But the idea for the split character was John Hamm came on board first, and the idea for the split character existed before Dan agreed to it, and when Dan agreed to it, then we were obviously delighted.
But John Hamm came on as I mean, he wouldn't have worked as a young doctor, would he?
Well, he, you know,
would
he
he?
uses a lot of moisturiser.
The idea was always
He doesn't smoke.
it would be a split character, so
Oh, I see.
a narrator talking backwards.
Because in the story, there is the Bulgakov stories. There are some stories with a doctor who's just out.
I know, I've read them. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay. So the doctor in Morphine is clearly sort of further along in his career, and so that felt.
But
like
the narrator's
John.
24, and I think John Hamm, it would be stretching incredibly.
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah, but so you know, like a lot of the comic, like the comic tone in the book is a young doctor trying to sort of present himself as someone who's together and knowledgeable, who he knows, but so the narrator will tell us that he's actually running back to his room to get cigarettes, and so you know, for us that was just to have the older character present, and in fact he could tease that comedy out, so we could get sort of you know, that comic tone and that
I thought that
comic
worked very well.
knowledge out of you know, from the book, which is great, and to have it here and to get them in the bar.
And it fitted two of the aspects of it, I'd say. The kind of whatever job you do on your first day, you kind of you realise you're not the person that you expect to be in 15 years' time. You're just the kind of the nervous person there, and I think that's particularly true of medicine. So the idea of looking back and looking forward, but especially for addiction, to have a character who is the addict looking at the younger self and wishing they hadn't made the decision, and the younger character looking forward and going, all right, this is what I'm going to become.
The real problem for us was you know, that idea was great, and you know, I just talked about it works well, but then you go back and you realise that all you want to do is tell the story of a young doctor who arrives in the middle of nowhere, doesn't know anyone, doesn't know anything, and so then putting his older self in scenes with him. A great fear in writing was that we suddenly give him a best friend, you know, a shoulder to cry on. So we had to try and make him sort of not deliberately mean, but as casually, sort of inadvertently mean.
Essentially what we tried to, and hopefully it came across, but what we tried to get John Hamm to do is basically voice all the neuroses that are going through. Because in the book there is a dialogue, an internal dialogue in the young doctor's head about all the stuff about I can't do this, you can do it. That's in the young doctor's notebook. And so
Which is incredibly funny.
It's very, very funny. We really wanted to try and bring that onto the screen. We thought the device we would use is that John Hamm from the future would be the guy who's sitting there going,
John Hamm from the future. We lost that title.
then he would be the guy who would be voicing these neuroses and saying, you know, you're really young, what was strangulated earlier, and that was sort of what we settled on in the end.
Yeah.
Hopefully it works.
Okay, anyone else? There's a lady in the room here.
Hi, I'm sorry for the randomness of this question, but this is going to air in the build up to Christmas. So, sorry everyone else. What do you love most about Christmas?
Sorry, who's A Young Doctor's Notebook on Sky Arts.
Thursday night?
I don't know. I don't know. Carols. I don't know. The question wasn't name things about Christmas, was it? I don't know. Probably just selfish things like getting presents and giving them, obviously.
There's a great story. There's a British ambassador to US was once asked, you know, what he would like for Christmas, and he thought he would be quite modest, and he said, you know, a box of chocolates. And then it came out in the paper that this person had gone through and they'd asked all the sort of ambassadors what they wanted for Christmas. They said, you know, all peace and you know, it's just the drugs for British ambassadors.
Okay, well on that
Can I
note,
just, this is a bit random too, but have you read J.K. Rowling's new novel, and if not, do you plan to?
I have not, and I do plan to.
Well, that's
okay, let's want to ask any more random questions about.
Well, sorry, what paper are you from?
I'm from the Daily something.
State. You're from Bath.
What a huge pleasure it was to work with Mr. Radcliffe and Mr. Ham, who I both of which I had great admiration for, and was quite nervous of working with both, and they were absolutely bloody fantastic and a great pleasure. So thank you, Dan. Thank you, John, wherever you are. And but it really was a massive pleasure. So yeah, it really truly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so can we say thank you, please, to Sean?
Oh, yeah, people are desperate for me.
It's slightly embarrassing for Dan to be picking up the script. I mean, you asked about comedy. None of us had any idea that Dan was a comic actor of the caliber that he is, and that was a revelation. So,
Thank you. Let's go quickly.